What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome into the Kansas State Reaction edition of the Country Roads webcast. As always, I'm your host, Jordan Cruz, joined by my co-host, Steven,
What's up, everybody?
and our other co-host, Bradley.
How's it going?
All right, so West Virginia falls to Kansas State 34-17 to drop to 4-6 on the season. And funny enough, I know we didn't get to have a preview show, but it's crazy because I was going to pick a 34-17 Kansas State win. That's crazy.
Yeah, that'd been a nice guess, right?
Yeah, no, but in all seriousness, West Virginia had chances in this game, especially, I think that first quarter, I put on Twitter the first quarter really made a difference in this game. Ended up being a 14-point game, and West Virginia essentially gave away, 14 points in that first quarter. Also, they had a touchdown probably on their second play to Winston Wright, ends up as interception. Flea flicker, perfectly drawn up. Daggy underthrows it. Wheaton can't come down with the two. Kansas State ends up getting a block punt for the other 7 of the 14 there. So West Virginia put themselves in a hole early, tried to come back late. By that time, a little too late. What are your guys' thoughts on this game? And I guess the season as a whole to this point. What are you thinking, Bradley?
So I said I was going to do some ranting, so I'm a little ready to do some ranting here. So this game it just seems like we keep finding every single way in the book to lose. I don't know what it is. I don't know what's going on here. And, watching the game, I wasn't that mad about it because, it is what it is. I went into this game thinking that we were going to lose to Kansas State by at least a touchdown or two, so I wasn't surprised by the score. But what kills me is watching Neal Brown's post-game conference. And I want to be very clear. I'm still in on Neal Brown. I'm still trusting the climb. I still think that we've got a future ahead of us. I mean, I think this is a 6-year rebuild. And I think that, people are really trying to rush this. But what's really starting to bother me is how I keep hearing every weekend after the games, because that's the first thing I do is I wait for that Neal Brown to come out and tell me what happened. And I'm getting tired of hearing every single weekend about, the margin of error is just so small. And, we just come out, we make mistakes, and that's what costs us the game. But we continually come out every single week and look sloppy, and we look so undisciplined, and we look like we're not ready to step in there and play a football game. And when we look good, we look pretty damn good. But when we go out there, we look bad sometimes. And it's just absolutely embarrassing sometimes. And it's really frustrating that I keep hearing, we make a couple mistakes here, like, it's just this fluke stuff. But it's like we keep coming out here every single week, it seems like. And the same stuff just keeps happening. We just keep making the same stupid mistakes. If it's not, we only had 2 penalties this game. I think he said we had very few penalties this game, but then we turn around and, force turnovers. And the first one, sure, off of Winston Wright's hands, whatever. The second interception is really bad. The fumble, really bad. The blocked punt, missed assignments. But that's what we keep hearing is missed assignments. Oh, this happened, this miscommunication, this happened, X, Y, and Z. And I can't help but think that all of this has to keep coming back on the coaches now. And that's really frustrating for coming from a man that, I love Neal Brown and I've loved his staff, but to turn around and keep giving me the same product every single week and expecting a different result is really frustrating. And I mean, like sometimes it comes out and it works, but a lot of times, 6 times this year, we've put it out there and it hasn't worked, and that's so frustrating to sit here and watch and just see no changes happen. And now we're getting even thinner on our defensive side. Our defense keeps on getting hurt because they've had to absolutely carry the load of our team this whole year. And they're starting to pay the price for it. You got Lance Dixon out. We're on the skin of our teeth back there in the defensive backs. And it's like, at what point in time do you see like some changes happen somewhere, somehow? And I want to look at the offensive side and be like, oh, it's just youth. And I've said plenty of times that our offensive line is like so young. But we're also returning 3 offensive linemen that played decent amount of time last year. We're returning every single one of our wide receivers from last year. We're returning our starting quarterback, and we're starting a running back that rushed for over 1,000 yards last year. So I don't understand how we can take such a huge step back on offense. It just makes no sense in my mind how we can turn around and just put out such a sorry product every single week. And that's one of those things I think has just got to come back on Neal Brown and his staff. I still believe in them. I think that they'll get the ship righted. I think a lot of it has to do with just he doesn't have the right personnel in there that he wants yet. But at this point in time, I can't help but be frustrated that week in and week out, we just see absolutely nothing on the offensive side outside of we'll have 2 possessions where our offense actually looks redeemable. And then outside of that, it's just laughable. And it's so upsetting just to sit there and watch it sometimes. That's how I felt about it.
No, I agree. It's one of those games. I think it was to a point where, they're in the third quarter early. West Virginia was down 24-3 a week after they had just lost 24-3. And I'm like, 2 quarters and some change later, and you're down 24-3 again is not the bounce back I was hoping to see. They finally, started to put together a little bit there later in that third quarter and, got it to give themselves a chance up until that fourth down conversion by Kansas State. But I agree, it's definitely something that's not acceptable. And, like you said, I think it's a 5-year rebuild or so also, but still you can't put out that product on the field, time and time again, especially when you're trying to tell people trust the climb and everything like that. I still have faith in Neil Brown and stuff, but definitely it's unacceptable and you want to be able to fight and be in games closer than that. So I definitely feel you right there. I'm right there with you. Stephen, what about you? Opening thoughts in regards to this loss and I guess the season as a whole, because, all three of us, I know we're really optimistic in the preseason going in. And so I think it's something that a lot of Mountaineer Nation was because what the coaching staff was telling us. So this has just been really, to me, I think, been a disappointing season just because of what we thought we were going to be versus what we've kind of ended up being here fighting for our bowl eligibility lives in our final 2 games. But, Stephen, just kind of get your thoughts on that season as a whole and then, this loss to Kansas State.
Yeah, I just think that there is obvious changes that need to be made. Where those changes lie, that's my question. I think it's pretty obvious that this season in a whole is a disappointment because we're going to finish at best 500 going forward. And that's not a positive in any way for where we're at, even, to this point with this coaching staff. And I think they've made that a very strong point in the preseason, as well as the fan base has made. I get it, it is a 5-year rebuild, and I understand that, but during that rebuild, you're not supposed to be going on a decline. Going 500 this year, or as Fletch would say, below 500.
That 5-7 he's been preaching
would be.
I'm gonna hate it if we end up 5-7 just because of that.
Yeah, would be a fallback. So I don't know where West Virginia stands, to be quite honest with you, because we seem to be getting worse and worse each week into this season, and I keep waiting for what I've said is the offensive spark to happen. It hasn't happened yet. It happened, what I thought it happened in the Iowa State game. I think, to be honest with you, that was more of an off week for Iowa State more than a coming 2 week for West Virginia. And the defense, as well as they were playing in the early part of the season, we could use the excuse that they're gassed, but you can't get gassed on good football teams going this deep into the season. And I don't care what kind of injuries you have; those are excuses. I've said that a lot. You have to have depth. That comes back onto the coaches. And right now, West Virginia they're in a really dangerous spot, in my opinion, going forward, because we haven't been competitive in what I would say 5 games this season. How do you not be competitive in 5 games in the Big 12 Conference? How do you let Wyatt Milam, who is an offensive lineman, have more rushing yards than Tony Mathis, who's your backup running back? He had the same amount. They both had 3 yards rushing that day.
Yeah.
77 as a whole as an offense.
Okay. Yep, and I thought we were going to get to 100. We started off good early in the first quarter. I was like, okay, we might get to 100, and never made it there. I think, Leddy ended up with a pretty good day. I think he had 85 or something like that. But with Daggy sacks and stuff, Leddy had a good day with quite a. But with Daggy sacks, I think took it down to 77, like Steven said. So under 100. So that number's still there. The 100 rushing yards for Neil Brown on this team. Didn't get it. Another loss. When they get it, they've won. I don't know. That's pretty much just kind of where it's at right now. Defense been carrying it. Offense has been struggling, to say the least. So I guess let's put our coaching hat on. How would you guys fix it moving forward, whether it's in this final 2 games for this offense or even looking ahead into the offseason? What needs to change? We're all still believing in Neil Brown, still trusting the climb here overall because we know it's a 5-year rebuild, but I think we all agree something has to change. So put your coaching hat on, or maybe even your athletic director hat on. What needs to change moving forward, do you think, Stephen?
I think first and foremost, I think it's pretty obvious we need a quarterback change. I don't care about what relationships that Coach Brown or anybody may have with anybody on the offense or defense or anybody on the team as a whole. I think, we have not seen Jared Deggy produce as well as a D1 quarterback should produce. I mean, you could make excuses for him and say, oh, that one pick went off Winston Wright's hand, or that pick went off of this guy's hand, or the offensive line isn't breaking, giving him enough time to break down in the pocket. Excuses, man. Okay, we can fix those problems moving forward. But Jared Degge has not proven himself as a quarterback, and week in and week out, he proves. I hate to say this, but he proves to be a loser, and he's proved me wrong because I was on the Jared Degge train for such a long time. I think moving forward, whether it be Garrett Green or Will Crowder, if Garrett Green's hurt, I think we need to move on. I think that's the first and foremost change that we need to make. And, these transfers that are coming out of West Virginia, they're not coincidences. And I get that's part of the game today. You're going to see transfers every single year, and there's going to be transfers at this part of the year that leave your football program. But these are players that were supposed to play next year. They were supposed to fill those voids that we were, losing on our offense and our defense. And and Daryl Middleton and Sam Brown. Those are two guys that we have talked about a lot. So, I mean, that is a glaring problem for me. So I'm still, like you guys say, I'm still on the Neal Brown. I'm still on that bandwagon, but I will tell you what, guys, if we lose one or two more games in a non-competitive fashion, I don't know how long I can ride that train.
I know. I mean, it's getting to that point. This fourth season is looking really important, and that's what's making me nervous because I think moving forward, as you said, the biggest issue looks like quarterback. And though you may have an answer to that in Nico or Goose, two guys that have really high potential, either way, next year in his fourth year that really needs to be a big year, he's going to be putting in the hands of a first-time starter one way or the other, whether it's a true freshman in Nico, a redshirt freshman in Goose, or Garrett Green, who's played some snaps but, hasn't really started, or even if he brings in somebody from the transfer portal, it's going to be putting a lot on whoever you got at quarterback next season, and Neal Brown's going to have to really have a show-me season next season. And I think a lot of it, he said when they came here, they wanted to build a program that was really built on defense, had a strong defense, felt like that's how they could compete in this league. And I think they've done that. I think we could all agree they've done that. But the offense has been the issue, especially, last season at times and definitely this season. So hopefully they can bring that same mindset to the offensive side of the ball if they have to make some tough firings or whatever and bring in some new people or whatever to bring in some new ideas and really overhaul that offense and decide what they want to do with it. I think that they have a chance, but I think that's what they really need to do is they need to hone in. Okay, we had to focus on developing a good defense when we got here. We've done that. Now let's turn our attention to the other side and really hone in on that and have a good offense because next year's big. Like you said, I'm still on the Neal Brown train too. I think you're getting next season no matter what, but it's really going to be a show-me season, not only for the fans, because some fans have already, started turning out, but the ones that are left that knew that it was a long rebuild is going to be a show-me season for them and for your athletic department, frankly, I think. So hopefully they hone in on that offense. That's what I think really needs to change moving forward. I don't know if you'll be able to do it these last two games. I think it's something in the offseason you're going to have to implement and do almost like a total overhaul. But Bradley, what about you? What needs to change moving forward in your opinion?
Honestly, anything. I would take the most microcosm of change right now, honestly, but we have not seen anything change. I mean, nothing has changed from week one that we've been doing for our football. I mean, we've seen Garrett Green get 4 snaps every now and then. Every other game, Garrett Green might get 4 or more snaps. I mean, the guy didn't even travel this weekend, injured or not. You think the guy would still travel with the team. That doesn't look good. And so, going forward, I just don't – you can't try to save this season with the same stuff you've been putting forward, trying to keep Jared Degge in just for the sake of thinking that's your best option. I don't – leaving Jared Degge in just because you think he's your best option to win the games just isn't enough anymore because he's not winning games. I could get that if he, made it competitive or something in the least like that, then I would be – at least better, more willing to hear it. And I know the guy hasn't had the best offensive line in front of him, but at some point in time, his interception went off of Winston Wright's hands, but you turn around and look, he's beaming balls 2 feet above guys' heads. And I get he's shucking it out of bounds.
He also, on what I call the most pivotal drive of the game, threw an interception late or early in the fourth quarter, late in the third quarter. When West Virginia they were within one score. It was 24-17, I believe, something around that area. West Virginia was driving.
Brown fumbled the ball.
Letty Brown fumbled the ball, but he was down. Then they turned around and Jared Dickey threw another interception.
He threw 2 in the game. I know he threw 1 late, but I
I'm
can't
pretty
remember if
sure-
it was when we were down 7.
I know
or when we
one
were
of
down
those
14.
interception came on one of those drives, but I know what you're talking about. Letty Brown did fumble the ball, but I thought that was one they called him down.
Yeah, that's when we were down by 7, and then we turned around. We were trying to get a drive going again, and that's when he threw a pick out there in the fucking middle of nowhere.
Oh yeah, after they got the Brown fumble.
because
Yeah,
he was just trying to
right
make
now.
plays. He was just trying to make plays happen.
And then
He was like, sugar.
also, I want to point out, as high as I was on Vandarius Cowan, that was
That was
absolutely
egregious. That was egregious.
classless hit. Man,
That's
that
like
was
his
stupid.
third. That's like his third roughing the passer.
Yeah.
That's just
like all of them
stupid.
the same.
I mean, that-
Not a good
It
look.
wasn't even anywhere near the realm of I might be in time to hit him. He had the ball out for like 2 to 3 seconds before he hit him. I mean, I don't know. That kind of stuff to me is why I think that this team has just given up. I don't think they're going to be competitive in either of the last 2 games of this season. And I hate to say that because I really would love for West Virginia to get a bowl game and at least be able to play for a bowl this year. But I disagree. I think if West Virginia, it depends. I'm not saying if they lose these last 2 games that they'll let Neil Brown go, but I think that,
you lose to
depend-
Kansas.
depending on the way that
I
they
would be
lose
shocked.
these last 2
I mean,
games.
I was about to say if they lose the
Because
next
right
2,
now,
maybe, but
I don't want to. Let me see. It was 14-7 earlier. It is 14-7 now. Kansas over Texas.
wow.
Upset potential, and so West Virginia, if they lose these last 2 games in a non-competitive fashion like they have several times this year, I don't know that the athletic department is going to let that slide. You know what I mean? I don't think that that's something that we can accept moving forward, because we can accept a rebuild, but with a rebuild comes competitiveness, and West Virginia hasn't shown that.
Yeah, and like Jared Dickey, like back to his point, some of his worst throws weren't even the interceptions. I mean, he had 2 or 3 balls today that should have been picked. I mean, really, he had some awful throws today, and it just continuously happens. And then he has like a couple good ones that just like happened to save it, and he showed he had a little bit more feet today, but it's just not enough. Thank God, Caden Prather provided a little bit of a spark today. That
Oh yeah,
dude came out and made some catches that we haven't really seen most of the year.
that's
when he
my
got
bright
open.
spot.
Reese
was
Smith
Prather
also.
today.
Yeah,
Reese Smith looked good
big
too.
touchdown
First
catch.
career touchdown. Yep. I
and
think
then-
for Daggy, it's like we've talked about before. It's just not seeing the field. I think it was like a 3rd and 3 when the game was still in hand. I can't remember if it was second quarter or early third quarter, but he goes to a guy that's right there like double covered, and you see on the replay, no one's within 10, 15 yards of Sean Ryan, and it's just not seeing those wide open people. Only honing in on one receiver, and then the missed throws out of nowhere. Like he'll look good. Like, and then I know he had Winston Wright wide open on an out route one time, sailed it nowhere near him. Winston Wright didn't even have a chance, and Winston Wright was open. West Virginia had a first down on the play. So it's like we've said before, when he does make mistakes, when he does have his miscues, they're bad. That can cost you games, and that's the issue with Daggy, I think.
Yeah, and then Tony Mathis needs to be getting more touches. The guy needs to be in the game more. He looks good when he's in there. Tony Mathis runs. He runs hard. He's got some quickness to him. I love the way Tony Mathis looks, but he's not getting any touches because we're just leaning on Letty Brown. And, he has not looked great this year behind a mediocre offensive line. He's done well when he's gotten the ball out there, when he's gotten touches, but he's getting beat up.
I think that's what
They
I would
don't
say
trust
that
the
is
offensive line.
That's one of the biggest harps I would have on Neil Brown and his coaching staff is their inability to play young guys.
And
Yeah,
the young guys
or
have
play
looked
backups
good.
a
Which
lot.
has been Wyatt Milam looked great. Caden Prather looked great. Zach Frazier has looked great. Reese Smith has looked good. You tell me, Bryce Ford Wheaton has been the best. Isaiah Esdell's looked good. Sean Ryan's looked fine. They've
Although
looked good.
Esdale's hurt, I think, right?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
missed
But I'm
Isdale
just saying,
practice game and game before.
But I'm saying, like, throughout the year, like, those are the people that have, like,
Yeah.
looked good.
Yeah.
But you tell me right now who are the most people impressing you the most. I mean, granted, it's just this game, but Tony Mathis has looked good, and that's a new face. Like, some of these young guys on the front of the line, they've been our best offensive linemen. I mean, really and truly. Brandon Yates over there has had a kind of in and out year. Zach Frazier's had a tough year sometimes, but, like, Doug Nestor's not looked that great, so he had a lot of blown coverages today, and it's just – man, I don't know. You say, like, what do we change? Like, I don't know what you do change. Like, you can change out your quarterback. You can swap out your running back. But other than that, you can't really swap out your front line very much because, like, they're not ready. I mean, Jordan White, Jaquay Hubbard, and them might have a chance to step in there. But, like, I just don't.
Yeah, they
I
haven't
don't know,
really
man.
shown since the bye week. They've almost exclusively been playing the five they've been playing. You've seen a little Parker Moore a couple times, and then Jaquay Hubbard. Today when Brandon
Yeah.
Gates went in, you've seen him. So they don't think they really trust. I don't think they really trust the offensive line and run block, and I think they've shown that time and time again this season. And it's like it'll look good early, but then once they start getting behind the chains, they go away from it. And I just think it's funny because I was listening to the pregame on the radio before the game, and Tony's conversation with Neil Brown, he specifically said, we're not going to be a team. He said, if we're throwing the ball 40 to 50 times, we're probably not going to win the game or win a lot of those games. And I just look back over the times this season that Jarret Doege has thrown for 40 to 50 times, and it's been more often than not. And, this game the same way. I think he had 3 for 40 to 50 times. And it's like if you are sitting there saying that it's going to be hard for you to win games like this, then why are we consistently doing that? Is the offensive line that bad, or is it the play calling? I don't know. Something's got to change if you don't think we'll be able to win consistently doing that, but we keep doing it.
And I think this comes to something where it's just like I feel like what we're being told just isn't syncing up with what we're seeing. And because like something that really irked the shit out of me today in Neil Brown's postgame conference when he was talking about, hey, I can't blame it on the effort of the guys. He said, if it's an effort issue, I'll tell you on Tuesday. He said, but our issue hasn't been effort. Our issue's been mistakes. He said, we're not doing what we're coached to be doing. And that comes back to like, well, if it's not their effort, and you go back to a couple years ago, I wrote a post about it because I loved it so much. Neil Brown talking about perfect effort. He didn't need people that were going to get the play right every single time, but if they gave him 100% all the time, then they were going to be successful. Well, if they're giving you the effort that you want, Neil Brown, then like what's happening? Are they being coached wrong? It's like something getting miscommunicated in here. Like, why are these guys going for ankles? Like that has to come out with coaching. And you could say that, that's not what they've been coached to do, but good teams don't do that. Good teams listen to their coaching. Good teams have good fundamentals, and it just seems to be what we're lacking. And that comes back on, the coaching staff. And I mean, if you go on to lose if you win or split the next 2 games, you've got a chance of, kind of dampening some of the noise and not absolutely getting roasted onto the offseason. I think if we lose the next 2 games, I don't think Neil Brown's out, but I think that he's going to be hard pressed to keep any of his offensive staff. And I just don't know how you argue against it.
I think he might be already to that point where that we're going to see some changes regardless at this point, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
offensive
you're going to have
staff-wise,
to. But if you lose the next 2 games, I think that it might be you might keep Chad Scott. I mean, and that's about it because I think that he's a halfway decent running back coach. But the rest of them, I mean, you're probably just going to have to wholesale whole new offensive squad. And I mean, that's like you said, going into next year where it's a show me year, you're going to have a brand new offensive coordinator.
It's up in the air right now.
Setup, and you've got a freshman coming in, and Nico Markell has still looked good. The guy looks great singing Country Roads after his big win over a 45 straight win team. And I would love to say that he can just walk into here with a veteran offensive line and some veteran wide receivers, but I just don't know.
It's hard as a true freshman.
Yeah, losing Sam Brown, where Neil Brown just said that's one of our thinnest spots today in the post-game press conference, where that's where we're thin at is offensive line, receivers, defensive backs. You just lost a super talented young wide receiver, and I don't know why Sam Brown left. I don't know what it's like in that locker room. I thought he had great potential going forward, especially in his spot, because Sean Ryan and Isaiah Esdale are gone after this year, and he's the next man up. I don't know if he was just upset with not getting enough playing time or not even getting a shot. Maybe he should have gotten a shot. I don't know. And I mean, I hate to say that considering Isaiah Esdale and Sean Ryan have been some of our most consistent wide receivers. But that sucks to watch a great talent like that walk.
No, I agree. It does. I hate to see it, but I think the writing was on the wall with that one too. Looking at his tweets all year and everything, he was mad that he wasn't getting playing time, and I think as well maybe he should be just because he made plays every time he was in there, but then they just never really. I don't know if it was a practice thing with him or they didn't. I don't know. He didn't do the things they wanted him to do off the field or what? Because he definitely when he was in the games definitely showed that he had it. But West Virginia I think has the talent on offense around. I think the offensive line is young. You just got to hope that they gel and grow up quickly. But, here in 2-3 years, I think they'll be a really good offensive line. And I think the skill positions have good players. I think it's like you guys said, it's whatever what happens at quarterback, and it's just going to be hard moving forward with you're going to have a first-time starter there probably because somebody said Doege would be back next year, but I don't believe them.
You wrote it down too. I guarantee.
Yeah, I know. Well, it was we were really riding a high there. It's really went from like the highest part of the season was immediately followed by like the lowest part of the season, and it's crazy.
Yeah, it's been sad.
Yeah, and I think Iowa State's a team that's kind of like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. They end up losing today to Texas Tech, and so I figured might as well talk about some of the scores around the Big 12 because that was one that surprised me. I looked and Texas Tech was up 2 or 3 scores. Iowa State ends up coming back, kicking a field goal. Looks like they're going to force overtime. Instead, Texas Tech drives on the field, kicks a 62-yard field goal to win the game. And look around the Big 12, see what the scores were today. I know Steven said Kansas and Texas. Yeah, Oklahoma went down to Baylor.
Kansas is up 35-14 on Texas right now.
It's halftime right now at the time that we're doing this live. If you're listening to this on the podcast, you're getting the pre-recorded version. We're live on YouTube and Facebook following the West Virginia games either Saturday or Sunday night for our reaction show. But yeah, at this time, Kansas is up 35-14 on Texas at halftime. So Texas maybe really lost it. I don't know. That's 2 teams right now that are really down. I don't know what the attendance is going to be like in Morgantown next week for that one. But otherwise,
playing Kansas next
week. Baylor also beat
Yeah.
Oklahoma today, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Otherwise,
Oklahoma.
we got Oklahoma State's up 14-3 on TCU in the second quarter. Baylor, as you said, beat Oklahoma 27-14, and Baylor controlled that game. I know it was 24-7 at one point. Oklahoma even went back to Spencer Rattler, I think, around the second quarter, and it's Big 12's wide open. I think Oklahoma State's the definite favorite right now after seeing Iowa State go down today again, and Oklahoma take their first loss. So hopefully, if Oklahoma State beats Oklahoma in Bedlam, they won't have to play them again in the Big 12 championship game now, and have to play them back to back weeks.
Boo on Lincoln Riley for coming out and saying that Baylor was Aranda was being a little bit tactless with taking that field goal or whatever.
Oh, think of how many times that guy's ran it up though. I feel like Oklahoma's ran it up on us plenty of times.
It was about tiebreakers, and it's like he wasn't even doing it just to be disrespectful. He was doing it for a reason, because the Big 12 is one of the only conferences in the country that scores matter. Like they can go back to it and look at scores to determine tiebreakers for the Big 12 championship. And if Oklahoma drops another game, then Baylor's got a chance to be in that, and that score might matter. So boo on you, Lincoln Riley, for crying about it, man. That's good football.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. And then, as I said, 41-38, Texas Tech beats Iowa State. So Big 12 wide open moving forward, gentlemen. What are you guys thinking as far as the conference? Who looks like the favorite to you? I'm going to say Oklahoma State. I think that we took a beating from the Big 12 champs. It's finally going to end. Oklahoma's run and say Oklahoma State wins this conference. So who are you thinking, Bradley?
Yeah, I think Oklahoma State has a chance to make a dent in the college football playoffs. I think that they've got the defense to compete with some of the people around the country. I mean, they're one of the best defenses in the country, and I think they're one of the few people that could go toe-to-toe defensively with Georgia. I know that's saying a lot considering Georgia has been absolutely dominant on defense this year, but I think they're one of the few teams that can do it. And if they can keep their offensive line, if they can keep their offense alive at all and score 7 points against Georgia, it might be enough in a game like that. And so I think Oklahoma State is probably going to clear out the rest of the schedule. And, I hope they take it to whoever's in the Big 12 championship, and I'd love to see them in the college football playoff.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think they've got an outside chance if they went out to do it, and they should be in there, like you said, with a defense like that. That's something you want to see take on some of the best teams in college football and be right there. So hopefully they do, and I'd love to see the Big 12 get a team in that's not Oklahoma and Texas as well. That'd be great. Stephen, what about you? Your Big 12 favorite here is near the final weeks of the season. Only 2 WVU games left. Only 2 reaction shows left after this one, boys. Unless we make a bowl game, fingers crossed for that. But what are you thinking for the Big 12, Stephen?
I actually like Oklahoma. I think that Oklahoma, just from sheer experience, is probably going to be there. And I think the reason why is because I don't think that in Bedlam, Oklahoma State's going to be able to win that game. They're going to have to play them 2 weeks in a row.
Okay.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I like Oklahoma State. I think they're a good team. I just think that they're one of those teams that there's a certain point at the year that they falter every single time that they're good like this. They did it with Chuba. They've done it with Tyson Wallace. They've done it with a bunch of guys before. So I still
I don't
like
think
Oklahoma. I think that whatever or whoever they go to at quarterback, because up till this point in this in the season, it hasn't mattered for them. Both have been playing well enough to win, and they've been playing pretty good ball clubs. And Baylor is not a bad ball club. We've seen that for ourselves. So
Oh yeah.
I still like Oklahoma.
I think Oklahoma's toughest stretch is coming up right now. And I think that they've got Baylor today, and then they've got I don't know who they've got next.
I think they have. I still have Iowa State.
Yeah, and I think
Oklahoma
that's
State.
not going to be a pushover. And then they've got Oklahoma State. I think that Oklahoma might not even be in the Big 12 championship this year.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to make it. I just don't.
I
don't
think
know.
they will, because they always play their toughest stretch during the last part of the season, and this
Okay,
is when their
but-
biggest games always are.
The way I look at it is Oklahoma almost lost to us and Kansas, and we can
Earlier
see firsthand
this
that
year.
we're not that good.
Yeah, but they also lost to Baylor. Who's
Yeah,
sitting
but
right there
see, the
fourth.
thing that turned their season around was putting Caleb Williams in, a team that a player that people haven't
Okay,
seen. And
well,
now
by
people
that-
figured him out.
By that logic, Iowa State beat Oklahoma State, and we beat Iowa State.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying. They're
but-
no pushover. They could turn around and show up next weekend and put Oklahoma down. Because I mean, especially finally losing a game where your starting quarterback throws 2 interceptions, you have to bring in your return starting quarterback. That has to fracture a team somewhat. I just don't think that they're strong enough to be able to keep it together this year. I think that they just had too much stress on them. I think this is going to be a little bit of a fracture for Oklahoma in the Big 12 this year.
I think so too. And as much as I want to say that Oklahoma won't win the Big 12, I just have to go with what
It's hard to pick against
Steven,
them.
we're trying to
Yeah.
will it into existence. Steven,
I
just let
know
it
this,
happen.
man, but I'm trying to be right for once.
Yeah,
We
and
don't
I
want
never get
Oklahoma
anything.
in.
Yeah, I never get anything wrong. I didn't say we were going to go 10-2. Not me.
Yeah,
not this
I
year.
I don't know. I didn't say that we were going to have a winning season either. Nope.
Yeah,
Say,
Jared
Darius
Diggy
Cowan was a good football player.
Reformed. Jared Diggy has 6% body fat.
Yep. Jarrett Daggy. Jeez. This offseason really.
Best receiving core,
That's-
maybe top to bottom in
I'll
all
tell
the
you, boys.
country, guys.
I've learned a valuable lesson. I'm never listening to Coach speak again. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
buy in. I'm just gonna kind of go off my own head and then wait till
I
I see
can't-
the team.
I
and
can't say the
decide for
same.
sure because
I will listen to Bob Huggins. I'll listen to every word
well,
he says.
basketball is a different. But I'm
He
saying
ain't never told a
football
lie,
right now.
okay?
Nope, I'm not. I'm not doing it.
Wait, I want to go back real quick because I haven't been on here since we played last weekend. I hated that commentator. People were talking about him a lot. I didn't know what that commentator was talking about. He said that we had one of the best offensive lines in the Big 12 this year. Since
Mike
when?
Gundy planted that bug in his ear because Mike Gundy
Yeah.
had said that in his press conference to try and
Yeah,
set that up, I guess. But
Yeah, he was talking about how, we needed to rely on our running game because our running game's been our strength this year. Granted, when we hit 100 yards.
when we have ran
win
good,
every
but
game.
when has that been?
But we've also been the worst rushing team in the Big 12.
Mhm.
I don't know what he's talking about half the time. And I was just, he got it right with Jarrett Daggy missing open passes. But I thought that was dumb. That guy was missing some.
No, I
missing some
agree. That
info
was bad.
somewhere.
Well, that's the problem. These announcers that announce your game usually have watched your team play maybe once all season, and then are just listening to what the other opposing coach that's going to that game tells them, and what your coaches tell them, and that's how they're coming up with the things that they say. Because I guarantee that. I mean, he got that from Mike Gundy, so that's it. Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. I was like, "What have you watched? Have you watched any of our games? Our offensive line's been our weakness."
Commentators don't watch our games, guys.
Yeah, our
Definitely
offensive
not.
line's the best in the Big 12. Gives up 10 sacks.
Literally broke the school record for most sacks in a game. Jared Daggy when he took 8 against Iowa State, and it's been kind of downhill ever since, except for one quarter of this one where they finally decided to put it together a little bit. So I guess moving forward, gentlemen, we won't hand out any players of the game in this loss. Kind of hard to do it in loss as always. So I'll say maybe just give me something that was a bright spot to you, and then what do you think moving forward? Home game against Texas. Just early thoughts on that, and bright spots that you did get out of this one. So we're not too negative, I guess. To just kind of close this out with some bright spots. What do you think, Stephen?
My bright spot was when the clock hit 000 because it was finally over.
Yeah, it was one of those games, man.
And
Yeah.
looking forward to Texas. Very winnable game, home game. I don't know who I'm picking quite yet, to be really honest with you.
I tell you right now that I'm probably not going to pick West Virginia. Maybe not the rest of the season.
Never been one to be that kind of negative fan, but they have not shown me any kind of progression at any point in the season this year, other than maybe from week 2 to week 3 in the Virginia Tech game. And thank God for that, because if we had to live this season with all of that on our heads too, it would have been a lot worse. Not saying that it's any better, but
well, listen, I think looking back, I should have, not tried to convince myself that the old theory wasn't true, that when we beat Maryland, we have a good season, and when we don't beat Maryland, we're not very good. I think that game really showed me a lot of the writing on the wall. I think that's one of the reasons I've been the negative Nancy this season, is that game really just showed me I just don't know if this team had it offensively. And there's been some bright spot games where they made me think maybe they would turn the corner, but it's just been those games have been anomalies. And I think looking back, as always has been the case, beat Maryland, good season. Don't beat Maryland, 6-6 or worse usually. And here we are again. So next time I'm not going to try and convince myself. Next time we play Maryland, I'm going to kind of judge it on that barometer game like we always say. But moving forward, I don't know. I think beating Texas would be huge. Like you said, you beat Virginia Tech also would go a long way with this fan base if you beat Texas and what could be Texas's last time coming to Morgantown. So hopefully that motivates you. Hopefully there's a decent crowd. I just don't know. I'm kind of worried about fans showing up for that one, but
I'll be there.
We'll see. 2 games left. Yep, the true fans will be there, of course. 2 fans left. 2 fans left. No, there might only be 2 fans left. But,
you might not be wrong.
But, but 2 games left. You got to win both to get to bowl eligible. I got to think that this team hopefully gives it their best shot and puts their best foot forward moving ahead. So that's what I'm hoping for. That's my bright spot, is that you still have a chance to reach bowl eligibility and then possibly win a bowl game and get to the 7 wins, which I said was the mark that would make me happy, because that would continue the quote unquote climb.
Climb? Is that the word, buddy?
Yeah, that one. Yeah. Quote unquote climb. That's a tongue twister for you right there, because you go from 5 wins to 6 wins to 7 wins. So that's my bright spot, is 2 games left. Still hope. I'm always trying to be hopeful, even though I've been the negative one this year. Bradley, what about you?
Yeah, my bright spot. I thought I've been so excited about Caden Prather, so I'm glad to see him just get some playing time today. And he looks so good, and I think that he's probably the future at our wide receiver position, to be honest. And I'm glad to see him put up 60 yards and make some good catches and really make an impact. And I was kind of worried about him hitting the transfer portal this year, so I'm hoping him getting some yards and some catches in a big time, or not a big time game, but in a game will kind of dampen that down a little bit for him, because I think he was also a little bit frustrated with not playing. So I was glad to see him. I thought he was a bright spot. Going forward, I think 2 of our 3 most winnable games of the year are ahead of us, right next to LIU. And which sucks. But I mean, Texas is just as bad, if not worse, than Kansas, and Kansas is always Kansas. And I even think at our worst playing this year that we've still been better than an average Kansas team. So I think that the Big 12's having an up year outside of everybody but us, Texas, and Kansas. So
seems that way.
I've learned my lesson on saying that West Virginia should win games, or are going to win games that they should win, because they haven't shown up.
Yeah,
that's what's going to really stink, is if the difference for making a bowl game and not making a bowl game is choking one at home against Texas Tech by a 3-point game that you should have won. Yeah. It's a Texas Tech team that was down all those players.
I also want to make a point that I think that there will be at least 4 receivers transfer out there in this offseason.
Wow, that's a high.
I really do.
Well, I mean, one's counting. Are you counting Sam Brown? So 3 more, or is what you're saying? Or
and you're saying transfer out? So like Sean Ryan and Isaiah Esdale are graduating.
Well, they can come
back. I'm not saying that they will all be starters.
Yeah.
I'm saying there will be at least 4 receivers, and maybe others on this offense that transfer out, because
I couldn't even tell you 4.
If we're already seeing big names like that transfer out, I mean, and that it doesn't end there. Kerry Martin transferred out.
DeVale Washington was a wide receiver, right? And he transferred. I think DeVale Washington was a wide receiver, and he transferred. Yeah.
There's
been
a bunch
moved to linebacker this year, but yeah, he was.
That's okay. I thought I was going to say cornerback, but I remember he switched to defense. Yeah.
Yeah. His highlight tape was wide receiver. He wants to go back to being a wide receiver.
Yeah, I'd say so.
That's what my heart feels, and the way the transfer portal works, in this day's game. I really do. I feel like if there's going to be a lot of changes made to this offense going forward. I don't think we're even half of these guys on this year's offense, whether that be from the line to the receiving core to the running backs to the quarterback. I don't think that the starters that will be on the team next year are on this year's roster.
That's a scary thought for
very scary. And I'm not saying that it's
going to be an important year for Neil Brown. You know, it's going to be really vital.
Need to be made, but
as shocked as I'd be if anything happened to him at the end of this season, I would be just as shocked if there's a similar season next season and something doesn't happen at the end of that fourth year. So, as secure as I feel like he is for this season, he's definitely going to be on the hot seat, especially if West Virginia doesn't make a bowl game. Making a bowl game might be his saving grace that keeps his seat still kind of close to warm, but, you know, not hot like it'd be if he doesn't make a bowl game. So I guess before we close this out, one final question moving forward. I know we talked about the quarterback play. We talked about the offensive struggles being kind of what's held this team back. 2 games left. Does Goose Crowder play for West Virginia in either of those 2 games? Bradley, what do you think?
Man, I would love to see Goose play. I'd probably like to see Goose play more than I'd like to see Garrett Green play. But everything in me tells me it's not going to happen. Neil Brown has to change one thing this year. He's not going to start with the last 2 games left.
Steven?
Yeah, I agree. I don't see it happening, and I want it to happen, but I don't see it happening. Even with Garrett Green,
I keep trying to will stuff into existence.
I'm trying to will it too, man. But Neil Brown does not want to make things reality. Neil Brown I hate being so negative on him because I've been so positive on him during his tenure here. But he has let things become stagnant to a point that it's humiliating as a fan base to watch. It's humiliating as a fan base as someone who has backed him up the entire time that he's been here. It's embarrassing.
I mean, we've all been on his back.
Yeah. Continuously see that product be put onto the football field and continue to go out there and play games in the fashion that we've got
my cat making an appearance on the show.
What's up, Cosmo?
All these bright lights.
Yeah, I don't see
he's not
anything changing
other than stepping away from play calling.
I'm convinced that Jared Dickey could break both of his legs and have a broken forearm, and he could still go out there and start quarterback for WVU this year just because his name's Jared Dickey.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Before this game today, I would never wish an injury on anybody, but I was like, if Jared Dickey's gonna ever get injured, I want it to be this game because I want to see Goose not get Green.
Nah, I would never wish an injury on him, but
that's what I've talked about. Much as I'm now officially like out on Daggy, you know, I had my moments with him and stuff. I think I'm out on Garrett Green, boys. I think it's Nico and Goose moving forward. I think that's the future.
Has to be.
I think so too, but I think Neil Brown needs to come to Jesus meeting in terms of who he's going to start a quarterback next year. And I get that he doesn't want to listen to fans and he doesn't want to listen to, you know, people tell him how to run the program. And it's been most of the fan base this season calling for Garrett Green. You've got to be able to see who makes your team a better team on Saturdays. I don't care what they do throughout the week in practice. I don't care if they're Michael Jordan all week and they show up on Saturday and they can't even, you know, they can't even throw the football because that's Jared Dickey. He can't throw the football.
That's what I'm worried about with Neil Brown. As much as we've backed him and everything, and I think right now the criticism is there. It's okay to be critical right now with what's going on, even if you do back him, because we do back him. We've said, you know, here we think it's a 5-year rebuild, but I think to me, and rest in peace to him, but Bill Stewart, I think would have been, you know, a great football coach had he had the right coordinators in place and the right assistants in place. And I think defensively he did, but on offense, you know, he went with Jeff Mullen and never changed that up. And I think that doomed him and led to him losing his job. And I'm hoping I'm not seeing history repeat itself and the same thing happen for Neil Brown and him to having his loyalty to his Troy assistants on offense not cost him his job, because he also seems like a coach that needs to have the right players on his staff in order to be successful. And I think on defense he does, but on offense he does not. And let's just hope and pray that in this offseason he gets that worked out and does not make that same mistake that could cost him his job moving forward, because it's heading that way. These last 2 games are very important for his future, and definitely, as we said, next year is the show me year.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely agree. We haven't been this low many times in my lifetime as a WVU fan, but can't say that I like to get used to this.
No one does. Got to expect better.
We're
Hopefully,
an 11-win team next
And
year.
in my
11
opinion, it's a
wins.
down year for the Big
Let's
12
hope so.
conference. That's
Yeah,
what's bad moment.
It's a weird year. I think definitely because Oklahoma's still up there, but it's like they're not their typical Oklahoma. Texas is awful, and then got
Baylor's
Baylor
coming
really
on
being the
late.
surprise team. Yeah,
Kansas
Baylor's really
State's coming
been the
on
team that
late.
people didn't see. Iowa State's not exactly as good as everyone thought they'd be.
Oklahoma has a chance of finishing 4th in the conference if they don't win out. Like if they lose out.
Yeah, that's
And
what it's gonna be like. There's such little distance from like the first place team to like the 4th place team because everyone's gonna have like 1 or 2 losses. Even the good teams have like beat each other. It seems like, with the exception of Oklahoma, who just took their first today, but I think they'll take another. So,
yeah,
One thing I will disagree with you on, Bradley, is I don't care who makes it to if whether it be Oklahoma State or Oklahoma. If either one of those teams makes it to a playoff game and they play Georgia is going to slaughter that team.
Probably.
Whichever team it is.
I don't think anyone's.
I don't think either team has the firepower to keep up.
Yeah, I think that just Oklahoma has the defensive firepower to kind of like keep it like a 7-0 game. That's why I said, if Oklahoma State can get in there, if they can just score 1 touchdown, it might be enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a defensive battle with Georgia, but I don't think anyone's beating Georgia this year. But that being said, I guess we'll get ready to close this one out here for the Kansas State reaction. We'll be back later this week for the Texas preview. As always, follow us on Twitter at WVU Country Roads. Got the live tweets going in the game. Always fun on Saturdays. And then, check us out here on YouTube, Facebook, whichever, for our live streamed reaction show either on Saturday or Sunday following the game. We'll have our Texas reaction next week, and you can tune into our social medias to see what time that'll be. And then, of course, we'll flip it into a podcast where you can hear the pre-recorded version of the reaction show from that week's game. But that being said, any final thoughts, gentlemen? Anything you guys want to add in here before we get ready to close out another good reaction show with y'all, fellas?
Like I said before, we just need definite change. Don't know where those changes lie, but we need to see them. Other than that, I'm glad it's basketball season. We're going to have another CRW hoops.
CRW hoops
coming at you again tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that.
After this.
Yep, West Virginia.
It's going to be in the
just
can and
Pitt,
be out hopefully tomorrow.
Yeah, you ship it. We got that. So.
All right. Sounds like a plan, boys. Looking forward to it. So you got CRW Hoops episode coming this week, as well as the Texas preview edition of this here Country Roads webcast football side. So both sides of the show's going. Yep. Oh, 2 hoop shows coming this week. So hopefully 3 episodes coming from this the Country Roads webcast this week, not including this one. So 3 more. And then, of course, the Texas reaction again next week, either probably around this time or on Sunday. But we'll just see how schedules line up for that one. Bradley, what about you? Any final thoughts?
Just horns down. It's horns down hate week, man.
Yep, horns down always. I think
the Big 12
would be big. Beating Texas big, I think, for this fan base. Just as Steven said, the Virginia Tech win was big. I think beating Texas will be another big one. So horns down definitely, and 2 of the biggest games of Neil Brown's West Virginia career up to this point probably coming up on, and the first one is up against Texas, and we'll be back to preview it later this week. That being said, this has been the Country Roads webcast. Check us out on any podcast platform you prefer. We're on all of them. Just search Country Roads webcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many others. Like us and leave us a rating if you'd like. Tell us how good we are, how bad we suck, whichever. Doesn't matter. The rating helps, and sharing it around still helps us grow. So 4th year of the Country Roads webcast, continuing to try and make the show grow. CRW Hoops coming this week. Texas preview coming this week. As always, I'm your host, Jordan. And for Steven and Bradley, until next time, let's go Mountaineers.